This conference will now be recorded.
Comprehensive Plan Update Countywide Citizen Advisory Committee. This is June 18th, 2020 at 4:02 p.m. We are conducting this meeting via Goto meeting online. I'm Chair Andy Davis. I'm calling us to order, but I might ask we can do brief introductions and we go around the group and make sure that everyone's audio is working so that we can hear each other and introduce folks. Is there staff who would be willing to call roll for today?
Yep, give me just 1 second here.
Gail. I will note that I will keep the chat window open so that I can see people if they need attention. You can say that you'd like to make a comment or something like that in the chat window if you have that available. If you're only on phone, feel free to jump in if appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so let's see here as far as roll call goes. Okay, so it'd be Andy Davis.
Present.
Jim Allegria.
Present.
Pat Corcoran.
Present.
Harold Gable. No. Jan Mitchell.
Here.
Cheryl Johnson.
Present.
Robert Strickland.
Here.
Todd Lundy.
I'm here, but I'm on the phone.
Okay. Ron Weber has submitted his resignation, as has Jim Coughlin. Is Andrea Mazzarella here? Nope. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. So the next item on our agenda for today is an overview of Goto meeting, but I want to make sure, are there any additions or motions to change the agenda for today?
Andy, this is Cheryl. Were we going to do introductions before we went to overview of the Goto meeting?
Sure. Would you like more robust introduction than just the roll call? I take it.
Yeah, there are additional people sitting in on the meeting, and I don't know who everybody is.
Sure, that makes sense. So let me see if I can get a list of folks who are here. It's a little hard to see with the shared screen also available.
Also, Andy, this is Cheryl. I have two technical questions.
Sure.
One is, how do we bring up? Oh, very nice. Did you just do that?
No, I think that was Gail or whoever is controlling the staff end of this.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that
Excellent.
was me. Thank you.
I can now see, I think, all of you, and I couldn't before. So that was one of my questions, Andy. There we go. And then my other question is, where do we get the chat option?
There's in the upper right of my screen, there is both a people icon for the participants, and there's a speech bubble, which is the chat option. Do you have either of those in the upper right?
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So pursuant to Cheryl's request, I might ask, I'll just go around the screen as I see it. Chad, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Yes. My name is Chad Washington. I'm the Stewardship and Community Engagement Coordinator for Greenwood Resources.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for coming today. Jed Arnold.
Hi, I'm Jed Arnold. I work for Hampton Family Forests out in Napa, and I'm here with my 1-year-old, so that's why you hear children's music in the background.
Great, thank you, Jed. Julia Decker. We can't hear you, Julia, if you are speaking. Okay, how about Lisa Phipps?
Hi, Lisa Phipps with the Department of Land Conservation and Development.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you
Hi.
for coming today.
Yep.
Christopher Farrar.
I serve on the Clatsop County Planning Commission, and so I'm attending this just to see how well it's working.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Barbara Fryer.
Hi, I'm with the City of Astoria. I'm the city planner here, so I'm just listening in and gaining your wisdom.
Thanks for joining us, Barbara. I have a caller 01. Caller 01.
It's possible it's me. I can't get my computer to take my voice. Let's just see.
I think we may have you on both.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ted. And then Clatsop Community Development, I believe that is Gail, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I think I've covered everyone.
Andy?
Leanne. Hi, Leanne. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I was asked at the last meeting, Leanne, what category are you in? I said I am neither fish nor fowl in these. So I asked the county manager, because it made sense to me that the commissioners, if they wanted to attend, Todd, if you mute yourself, we won't.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you. Otherwise, I might start singing the Everly Brothers, you know.
No.
We'd have fun. That the commissioners might be considered ex officio members because we don't have a vote. On the other hand, we'll be the recipient of your recommendations. And so, again, neither fish nor fowl, but here I am. Thank you.
Is that considered ex parte?
I shouldn't imagine.
You will have information that the others don't have? I'm just curious.
I know.
This is all public record.
Exactly. It's all public record. It's recorded anyway, so.
Thank you.
And there'll be legislative decisions, so.
Yeah, thank you.
And we had
ethical things brought up. Thanks, Jan.
I live with one, you know.
One more person join us, which is Diane Jett. Diane, we're just introducing ourselves to each other. It does say that you do not have audio.
Diane Jett from LC Vine Maple.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Anyone I missed here?
Andy.
Patrick.
Andy.
Yes.
Hi, Pat Corcoran, resident of the City of Astoria. I hear an echo. And at least for the next 13 days, Oregon State City Extension hazards educator.
Thank you, Pat. I had not asked the other commission members to introduce themselves, but I'm happy to do that as well. How about Jan?
I'm Jan Mitchell. I'm the vice chair. I'm glad that Andy's chair, and I live in Astoria, and I made my living as a planner years ago. Been here in Astoria for almost 26 years.
Thank you, Jan. Robert?
Hello, y'all. I'm down here on beautiful Clatsop Plains with a new dog that we're describing as a 1/3 size Scottish Deerhound named Ardbeg. But so if he appears, we'll recognize Ardbeg.
Tremendous. Thank you, Robert. Cheryl.
Cheryl Johnson, I'm part of the Northeast Clatsop County CAC, and then I am the rep from Northeast to the countywide one.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jim?
I'm assuming it's me.
Yes.
Jim Allegria. I'm on the countywide Citizens Advisory Committee representing Astoria. And I retired from the U.S. Forest Service Washington office, and I still dabble in some consulting work.
Thank you, Jim. And Todd?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Theodore Lundy. Sorry about the echo. And I'm the representative of the Southwest Coastal CAC, whatever it is.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, so now I have the agenda in another window. Can I ask, are there any additions or changes that any of the members would like to move to the agenda for today?
Call from Indianapolis, IN.
Hearing none, we'll go ahead to the next item, which is an overview of Goto meeting from staff. Is that you, Gail?
That's correct. I think a lot of what we would talk about, we have figured out as we've gone through the first 13 minutes of this meeting. We do not have a raise hand function like Zoom meeting has. So what the Board of Commissioners has been doing is if you have a camera on your computer or your laptop or your cell phone that you physically raise your hand. We're also monitoring the chat button, which is in the top right-hand corner of your screen. At least that's where it is on mine. And you can type a message in there to the whole group, and then we get a little notification. And that's another way to indicate that you want to speak. We do ask that if you're not talking, it helps with the reception and cuts out the feedback a lot if you do put yourself on mute. Let's see, I think those are the big features. I can share documents, so I can put the agenda up. I have some other items that I'll share with you later on in the meeting today. But I think those are the main points. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Gail. Are there any questions from the group for Gail? Okay, seeing and hearing none, and I don't see any in chat. I'll go ahead to the next item on the agenda, which is also staff, which is an update on our schedule and what's been going on during our hiatus here. Is that you again, Gail?
Yes, that will be me. So I put up on the screen the generalized timeline that we revised beginning for the June meetings. So when we left off in December, staff had anticipated taking a 3-month hiatus to do the rewrites of goals 1 through 4. And we did get through that and sent them off to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, for review and for some initial feedback and comments. So we were ready to start up our process again in April, and then everything shut down in March because of the pandemic. So we took April off. We did send materials out for Goal 5 to all of the Citizen Advisory Committee members. We did get some feedback that people just weren't quite ready to pick up the process at that point, so we let it sit for another month, and then got back in touch with the different committee members to see if people were ready just to do an initial meeting like this one. A lot of us had never worked with Goto or Zoom or any type of electronic meeting format, so for some members this has been a little bit of a learning curve. Others of us are getting very familiar with it very quickly. So we just wanted to have this initial meeting, see if people were ready to start picking up the process again. And if they are, staff has some thoughts about what we would like to do to help keep the process on track, but also perhaps streamline it and make it a little bit less cumbersome as we go forward. We've obviously now are about 2 months behind where we thought we would be in April. So we are hoping still to stay on track to finish the entire process by December of 2022, so 2.5 years from now. And what we would like to do as staff is to talk about, not giving you so much background material, the whole raw primary data, but to do more summarization in the background reports that we give you. So instead of maybe a 4-page background report, you get a 10-page report, but you won't get 500 pages of documents. Obviously, we're going to have to change how we work on our meetings right now until there's a vaccine or something that gives us better immunity than we have right at this moment. We are going to continue the electronic meeting format. It works well for most of the groups so far. We have a couple groups where internet connectivity is not the greatest, and they're going to be more challenging. So we'll keep working with those groups as well, though. Workshops are probably going to not happen. We've been talking to the state about maybe doing some virtual workshops with them, or maybe getting them to pre-record some materials that they could share with us. But obviously, we're not going to be meeting anytime soon like we were up on the 4th floor of the building where we all sat cheek to jowl to listen to Department of Forestry talk. During the hiatus, we did send off our draft goals to, as I said, Department of Land Conservation and Development. These are initial goals, initial drafts of the goals. They include all the comments from all of the citizen advisory committees, as well as public comment that we received. This is not a final draft. I just need to be very clear about that and make sure that there's no confusion about that. We have posted goals 1, 3, and 4, which we've received back from the state. They are on our website, and I have also sent out emails with links to those, and we've put them in our newsletter as well that goes out weekly. The other thing that we've been working on, and let me bring this up quickly here, is we put together a story map. So if you go to the county's website, on our comprehensive plan update page, at the very top, you'll see, first of all, information about the draft goals that are out for public comment right now. We did put a big disclaimer on there saying that, again, these are only first drafts. They've not been reviewed by the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners. We will collect the public input and bring it back to the citizen advisory committees in the future. Right below that, Ian Sisson, one of our planners, put together the story map and questionnaire, which apparently doesn't like the browser I have, but it's actually, let me see if I can do this in a different browser. Hold on a second. It's a very good story map that contains the whole list of the 18 background goals. And in addition to that, it's got questions about each goal, concerns, things that we wanted to get input on. Hold on, I can't talk and do 2 things at one time. Okay. All right, so this should be coming up here. Yeah, so Ian, our planner, put this together. As I said, it explains what is a comprehensive plan. It talks about each of the 18 goals, and you can link to them. It's got some maps in there. And then it goes through goals 1 through 5, because that's where we're at in the process right now. But when you get down to a particular goal, there's a questionnaire that you can fill out. You know, how do you get your information about planning in the county? What concerns do you have about development in the resource areas of the county? Different questions like that. So I would encourage everybody to go through there, take the survey, recommend it to your friends and neighbors, and help spread the word about that as well. And I think those are the highlights of what I wanted to hit. Just basically summarize what we've done while we've not been meeting, what we're looking for in the future. Oh, that's the other thing. To help streamline the process as well, we have been giving the committee members these worksheets that contain all the existing goals in a plan. And then, is it a goal that should be kept? Is it a goal that's completed and should be removed? Is it a goal that needs to be reworded or somehow changed? And so we really want to focus more on those worksheets to keep our discussions focused. We get a lot of input, which is wonderful, but it's also in the environment that we're working in, it's a little bit more difficult to have that interactive dialogue all the time. And since we aren't going to give you all the background material, just the links to it if you're interested, hopefully we can get everybody to focus on those worksheets and really focus on the existing policies. And then also, if you've identified an area of concern that needs to be addressed in the comprehensive plan, we would like for you to also put forward the language that you would recommend to address that. So instead of just saying, well, we need to think about climate change, okay, give us some specific language that you want to look at, or we need to look at job creation and protection. Okay, that's great, but again, give me a corresponding policy. So that's really pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I just think we need Google Translator for that.
To come up with a policy?
Wouldn't that be great? Like people can just kind of say their bitch and then it comes out in like land use policy language. That would be fantastic. I'll work on that.
Thank you.
So Gail, I just want to comment to thank you and your staff both for I think the story map by itself is pretty amazing to me. So I think that alone is worth congratulating you and Ian on. I think I don't know how much of that work ArcGIS does for you, but the finished product is quite impressive, and I'm glad that we have it to point members of the public to.
Yeah, that was completely Ian and some help from our GIS staff, and they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I agree. Are there questions or comments about process from the group here? Gail has described both changes in schedule and workflow. Thoughts, opinions, comments about that?
This is Jan, and I'll jump in. I'm not sure this is appropriate at this point, and I will probably show that my brain has been on other things besides this too much, just dealing with the world these days. I'm wondering, for my brain, it would help if we could find a way, and maybe it's the worksheets that I haven't looked at enough, but a way to solidify our positions on the things we've already studied before we move on to other things, because it's going to be, I think, too easy to lose the complexity and our positions as we move farther away from having read the materials and had conversations and so on. And I noticed when I read the minutes, because I missed the December meeting, that there were things I would have asked about. And I don't know how to overcome the inability to sit as a group and, kind of mull things over. And that's what I'm feeling a need for. How's that for stumbling around?
Do you have difficulty sitting in this group and carrying on a conversation?
No, I wouldn't. If we maybe said, okay, we're going to meet 2 times between now and the next formal meeting, and it'll be open to the public, but we're gonna just chew things over and talk about issues that we care about, or issues that are the way things are written or whatever. I guess it's not that I have difficulty with this format, though it certainly is lots more fun when we're all together. but I don't want to lose the ability to bounce things off of each other in the process. So that's about it.
I'm happy for you to bounce any thoughts you have. I think this is a great format. I think it's actually easier than our collectively driving several hundred miles just to get together.
That's true. By the way, I like your dog.
He's a good dog.
I guess it's setting up the opportunity for that then.
I have questions. Let's see, darn it.
Todd, I can hear you fine.
If we have an observation such as that I was noticing that there are a great many public interest sites along Highway 30 and 101, and almost nothing on the interior of the county where the timber companies have sway. And it seems to me that there's a great deal in the center of the county through the forests that would be of value to our citizens. And I don't know how to get that into language that would be in a planning document or how to approach it. Any comments are welcome.
Like adding sites to the goal 5 list
Yes.
of things.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
I have a question. Can you provide specific examples of what you're talking about regarding sites?
Yes, if you look at the map, you'll see most of the sites are along the 2 highways.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing in the interior.
Right. Can you provide some examples of what you would like to see in the interior or any known heritage sites?
I don't know any, but I could find out. And parks or places for people to camp or to enjoy the wilderness. I can see where the timber companies might object to that kind of thing, but it is an asset of the county and could generate a good deal of vacations and tourist money.
So you're requesting campgrounds be placed within the timber company's properties? Is that just trying to get clarification there?
It could be. It could be the county would purchase land from the timber companies. I don't know how it would happen, but it certainly is missing.
In response to both Ted and Chad, I wish I could tell you what the source of the material was, but recently something that I received in a planning mode had language along the line of the forests, private and industrial, should be for the enjoyment of everybody. And there was it didn't use the word usufruct, USUFRUCT, but it was certainly indicating that that was what was being advocated. And I know this is rather useless saying I can't point to it, even though I read it in the past week on material provided presumably through Clatsop County Planning. But I'd be watchful about language that sounds innocuous, but the Oregon Hunters Association has their idea of what's fun to do in the forest. And I certainly don't desire to have gunners blasting away as their form of recreation in my little tranquil place. So I think we just have to be alert to innocuous language about the enjoyment of the forest lands.
Guys, so I'm going to cut in here. I just want to inject that I think these may be valuable discussions for us to have when we get to, say, Goal 5 or future goal discussions. But
we are not in Goal 5 yet.
I just want to pull us back to right now. The agenda has us talking about process for scheduling, and Gail's introduced some topics about, especially say, do we want to accede? Staff is recommending that we will get a smaller informational packet in a different format, that we're going to give comments via worksheet. Gail, is there a example of this worksheet available? I also, like Jan, haven't seen one, but maybe I missed it.
You have received them in all goals 1 through 4 and with your goal 5 packet. It's a big ledger sheet, usually several sheets.
Right. So
It's red band at the top that'll say goal whatever. It's got the statewide planning goal, and then it's got all the different policies from the county's goals. So we have provided those to you for each of your 5 goals so far.
So I am familiar with that part of our previous packets. So you're suggesting now that you want that to be the primary vehicle of our feedback for what we want to see happening with the goals. Am I restating that correctly?
To an extent, that would be one part of it. So we need the committees to look at what's actually in the plan right now and figure out, yes, we've accomplished this, we do not need to keep it anymore. No, we haven't accomplished it, or it's an ongoing thing, we need to keep it. Or, hey, this is a kind of good idea, but maybe it's outdated now. Maybe it has old terminology. Maybe part of it's been accomplished and part of it hasn't. And then, so that's all on that one worksheet that you've all been getting for the different goals. The other thing that we'll do is we'll provide you, I don't know if it's a blank piece of paper in a table format, but if you identify something new that you feel needs to be addressed in the comp plan. So let's say the identified problem is that people don't wear enough yellow clothing. So we're gonna make a policy then. Just don't say people don't wear enough yellow clothing. Give me the language that corresponds to it, so that you say, Clatsop County shall encourage the use of more yellow colored clothing as opposed to blue or pink or whatever.
So for the example that Todd just brought up, that your request is that in a future meeting that Todd or another member of this committee would bring proposed language forward to say, we're not covering this in the current plan. This is the language I would like included about more public space in the interior, or however he wants to phrase it. That's what you're proposing, right?
Yes, and the more specificity you can provide, that makes it easier to review and provide comment on. I think if you just say we need more space in the interior, that's fine, but where in the interior, and how is that handled? You can't just take private land and say, well, and demand that it now become public open space. So you have to think through it, and it's all well and good to have, and it is a warm fuzzy document, but there also has to be a little bit of specificity to it. And we are taking everybody's comments, whether they agree or contradict, and we are putting them all out there for public review and public input. So again, the more specificity you can provide, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I think the dumbing down from 500 pages to 20 pages is removing 90% of the public process. That we are out here to speed read through those other 480 pages and not just read the Cliff Notes summary sheet.
So I would like.
I'd be satisfied if we were able to have access to the longer form.
So the goal is to not give you all 500 pages. We'll provide the links to everything, and if you want to read through it, that's fine. If the consensus of this committee is that you want us to continue to copy and deliver the 500 or 600 paper pages, we can certainly do that for you.
Or have the link to the PDF file.
Yeah,
So
that'd be my preference.
Right,
I
as
will
I've
point out that those links are available on the website even now. So both us and the members of the broader public have access to the full plan if we should desire to speed read it. Cheryl, I recognize that you've got your hand up right now.
And she's muted. There we go.
There we go. A couple of things. One is I wrote in the comments, but then the conversation moved on and nobody called on me. I wanted to respond to Jan's suggestion. I agree that we did a lot of work in thinking on those first goals, and for us to now go back and look at those and talk about where we're going and how we get there together. I like that. And nobody's in favor of more meetings, but I would like to say that if Jan and the others think that it's useful for us to come together and to talk, you know, sort of openly, informally, to try and get to where we want to be together, that I would be willing to participate. So I'm saying that I'm supporting Jan's suggestions there. There were two more that flew by and I forgot. Hop now to process. I'm wondering why we are using this format that doesn't have a way to raise our hands. And Gail, why are we not? I like Zoom. I'm used to Zoom, and you get to raise your hand, and then who's ever chairing it can see who wants to speak and call on us in order. This is sort of every man for himself. Whoever jumps in speaks. So, is there a nice way for us to decide, you know, how we're going to talk and in what order? And maybe Gail can say how come we're using this format.
So when the county decided to go to an electronic meeting platform, IT looked at Zoom and GoToMeeting, and I don't know if they looked at any others. This was the product that they selected. If you are unhappy with this product or feel that we can do better with Zoom, then the planning department would look at purchasing a Zoom subscription specifically for this process. But right now, this is being paid for countywide by the IT department. So.
Thank you, Gail. I think, Pat, did you have your hand up? And then I see Chad, I see your hand as well.
Sure. I guess I was just, as I'm thinking and summarizing things, number one, staff has done a great job of transforming this document into a living thing that I think is really great. I agree with Jan that there's kind of, and Cheryl, that, for example, in the recent well-done versions of goals, 1, 3, and 4, it would be good to have a time now to talk about what staff had done to our original kind of brainstorming, and as a final touchstone, maybe before it goes on to public review, maybe. We're entrusting a lot into staff and they're doing a great job, but I think that might be maybe what Jan was getting at, was the ability to see if what came out on paper was what the consensus of the group was. And I forgot the other thing I was going to say, so I'll just be quiet.
Thanks. Thank you, Pat. Chad?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that the comdev@co.clatsop.or.us is still an appropriate email to submit written comments, or should we wait until that questionnaire comes out?
You can do both. The questionnaire is up and running right now. We've also already posted the drafts of goals 1, 3, and 4 on the county's website. You can email comments to comdev, C-O-M as in Mary, D as in David, E as in Victor, at co.clatsop.or.us. You can phone your comments in to 503-325-8611. You can fax them to 503-338-3606, or you can mail or drop them off at the office, which is 800 Exchange Street, Suite 100, Astoria, Oregon, 97103. To stop the information where you send your information, going back to the discussion about how do we make sure that staff has accurately interpreted your feedback. we will be bringing the goals back to you. We have put them out for public comment right now just because we figured it was time to get some public comment on the drafts. You have all been copied into all of those emails as well. So you do have the ability right now to start looking at those drafts and seeing if we've accurately captured your intentions. Keep in mind that we amalgamated comments from 6 advisory committees. So you may see some of the things that you talked about plus a whole lot of other stuff, and you may think, well, we never said that, but another committee may have said that. So everything was put in. We wordsmithed a few things when they didn't make grammatical sense. So there were some changes there that we did take license with. But for the most part, we took everything that was given to us and found a way to put it in there. So.
Thank you for the clarification.
Jan.
That raises a question with me. Are we, as a committee that's been appointed and tasked with this, going to get to, at some point, to sort of gel what our position is? So, you know what I'm saying? It sounds as though there's a cluster of things from all sorts of places, and I kind of am wanting the desire to pull it all together so it's consistent and it makes rational sense to me, and it is our recommendation to the county commission. How's that going to work?
So when you say your recommendation to the county commission, are you talking that each committee should make their own recommendation? So we come forward with 6 different sets of the comprehensive plan, or, okay, so then we still have to bring the goals back to the individual committees, but we're trying to get public feedback on it that we can take the draft that was put together. We've got the comments from the state and we have comments from the public, and bring those back to the committees. Eventually, the committees are going to have to make a recommendation up to the countywide, which is you. The countywide is going to have to make a recommendation to the Planning Commission, and then from there it would go to the Board of Commissioners. But right now we are just in the public input phase of this right now. So the goals, I think, have been up for about a week. I've gotten some comments. I know that the county manager has gotten some comments on it, and so we're just trying to collect as much input as we can.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, thank you.
So Gail, process-wise, let me ask a question for you here. So if Clatsop Plains made comment in one of their sessions that substantially the other 4 groups or the countywide group does not agree with, how do the other groups go about amending that, noting that, taking it out of the final document, etc.? Process-wise, how would that look?
Okay, so when the goals have been taken back to the individual committees, the committees at some point will have to make a formal recommendation. And so if one group recommends policies 1 through 10, the second group says policies 1 through 5, and group 3 says policies 6 and 8, and makes that recommendation up to you as the countywide, then you will have to look at their recommendations, and you're going to have to make your own independent decision and say, okay, well, maybe it makes sense to have goals or policies 1 through 5, but maybe we don't need 7 and 8 and take those out. That's going to be something that you will have to discuss, and that's why you have liaisons who will explain to you if group 1 said we only want policies 5 and 6, then your liaison from that group 1 needs to explain to you what the rationale was behind that. And then it will be up to you as the countywide to evaluate how that fits and works with the entire county, because each planning area is going to come at it with their own not personal viewpoints, but planning area viewpoints, because that's specifically what's probably most in their head. Does that make sense?
It seems like we could note dissenting opinions, rather than squelching dissenting opinions.
I don't know if it's like a Supreme Court decision where you can have a dissenting view for the comp plan.
But you can pass along, so it's total information. You eventually passing along to the Leanne and her Supreme Commissioners the full range of data that there is not consensus.
I think that that's a possibility to explore, certainly. Gail, can I ask another process question? So you've described to us a process whereby each of the community groups, as well as the countywide group, would essentially have a piece-by-piece vote on approving the subparts of each goal. Where does that appear in the scheduling for the, you've given us the timeline proposed. That strikes me as a process that will be lengthy if we're going goal by goal, point by point. That's a lot of votes and discussion. Is that built into the timeline at the moment? And if you're speaking, we can't hear you at the moment.
Okay, so when we put together the guidelines, I guess specifically I did not put in voting times in here. It was sort of kind of built in, but kind of not. We can call it out as a separate line and then work that in, because that will definitely extend the time frame. You're correct.
Okay. I mean, I feel like the process you described is a fair one, and that all of the groups, as well as our group, would have the opportunity to go piece by piece through the goals and review them and talk about them. That would seem to accommodate things like what Jan and Cheryl are asking for as far as review. But we just need to make sure that we have time for that. I would hate for it to be a rushed process at the end where we just ended up forced into lump voting on things and without discussion. Pat?
And so an alternative would be some sort of iterative approach, as we're going along, to have those hierarchical conversations, kind of with each goal, rather than have it be kind of a balloon payment at the end, so to speak.
Agreed. Perhaps this allows us to segue into the next item on the agenda, which was really scheduling for future meetings. We have heard some discussion today, which may or may not be desired by the whole group or by staff, but I'm hearing maybe some workshop type discussion happening where Cheryl and Jan have brought up the possibility of getting together and brainstorming things, or perhaps, to your point about coming up with distinct language, having some opportunities to do that. Gail, do you think it's plausible for staff to have, say, an extra meeting every month for a workshop in addition to a regular meeting?
How are you distinguishing regular meetings and workshops, Andy?
I think that's a good question, Robert. I'm only familiar with other bodies like the Board of Commissioners or sometimes plan commissions who have work sessions where they go through and work on material before trying to pass it as a body. So I would only be suggesting something like that, a public meeting where it was designed to work through thorny issues of of what would be on the agenda for the next session, regular session. I see a couple of hands, Cheryl and then Pat.
I appreciate Gail's explanation of how the process works, and that the rewritten goals will go back to each of the groups, and then will come to the full group, and then we will decide in that process. That process made sense to me, and I can't speak for Jan, but at least for me, that process fulfills my needs for going back and deciding where are we as a group, what did we decide on, what do we feel good about. So at least for me, I don't need an extra meeting a month. I like the process that Gail described. And Andy, I'm glad that you asked, where is the time for that built in? Because I think you're right. I think that will be discussion. It is an important piece. We do need time built in for that. So for me, I'm okay without an extra meeting a month, but I can't speak for Jan.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
Interesting. That's great, Cheryl. That's like kind of the opposite of what I was suggesting. And I guess I'm open to both approaches, but it would need to be structured in. So kind of see kind of how everything falls out, and then at the end have the group kind of take a look at it and make some summary thoughts on it. I think that's fine. If there were an agenda for some intermediate meetings, for me, it would only be those things that popped up in the language that were controversial for me. And I found very few things in what I was reading that had red flags for me. So if there were an intermediate agenda, it would be for like 3 things in goal 4 that I was wondering about, but I could also, wait, keep my notes and see how things unfold, and then have a vigorous discussion at the end. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. Jan, I see your hand.
Yeah, I guess I can go along with that. I guess my and the city of Astoria their council does have a workshop meeting where there are specific maybe 3 topics they're going to discuss, and the public can attend, but the conversation is among the council. It's not, and I think that's some value to them, and they then can kind of discuss what their questions are with staff prior to actually having the public hearing. And so I was thinking of that kind of model. And for my distractible brain, and it's clear that I'm one of those ADD people, it would be helpful to be able to say, okay, we've just dealt with these 4 things. Let's take a look at those and discuss them now, and not wait for 6 months or whatever. But I can do, as Pat said, I can write down what my questions are then and do it a year from now. But, that I saw as sort of an interim measure that we could take the things that we have worked on more recently and have that little workshop kind of thing where we actually kind of have an opportunity to take the 1 or 2 questions that we have about particular policies, or say agricultural policies or that kind of thing. I may have 2 or 3 questions there, and talk about them and see if we come up with something different. And so that was all I was suggesting, but I can hold my fire.
There could also be a hybrid. I mean, a hybrid where there's a scheduled summary discussion towards the end, but for things that we ping, along the way, staff might see, hey, in goal 3, there's 3 things that they're kind of getting pinged about. We can have, maybe a meeting that would be maybe during the monthly meeting, but it could focus on those things that would be those initial things that we know we're going to maybe have to worry about and kind of nip in the bud early. But on the other side, on the upside, sometimes things that are concerns now kind of aren't, as things work out down the road. So having both opportunities would be great, but maybe not scheduling an every month meeting, but keeping the option open for ruminating on issues of high concern that maybe we can communicate to staff, and if they see an obvious issue, then they might be able to call something.
Andy, this is Jim Allegri. I can't raise my hand. My virus protection program is fighting me for access to my webcam. I do have a couple of comments. One is that on a process, I like the initial process that Gail proposed. I'm never have been a fan for a lot of paper anyway, and always wanted electronic copies. But I think the abbreviated section with links to with the background documentation, I really like that. I think that's good. In terms of what we're discussing right now, I like the idea of having a workshop every so often, bundle the goals into some logical format, and then have a workshop on those. Waiting till the end is really way too long. I don't think that that's very productive. On the other hand, having a workshop every month is overkill. So I like that in between notion of being able to work and try, and those intermediate workshops will help to resolve many of the issues as we go along. So by the time we get to the end, we do need a more comprehensive review, but it'll be a lot less painful because we would have already have agreed to many of the intermediate along the ways on these intermediate workshops.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jim. Chad, I'll recognize you here. Sure, go for it.
This is just a process-related question. At what point in the process are legal concerns regarding some of the policies under the different goals addressed? Is that prior to public comment, or there's several legal concerns that we can point out, but I'm just wondering at where in the process is that addressed at the very end? Is it addressed as soon as they're identified? Could you speak to that, please?
So typically when an item is like this is moving forward, we would have legal review at the Planning Commission stage and also before it goes to Board of Commissioners. We can certainly pull in legal counsel before then. I do understand that there are concerns, particularly around Goal 4. Again, this is a draft that staff used the comments from the public and the committee members that were given to us. We did not really edit anything and look at anything. It was, okay, this is what everybody wants. We're going to put it out there. DLCD has already given us some feedback about where they see concerns about things. But again, I need to stress, I cannot emphasize strongly enough that this is a draft. It is not a final document, and it is not moving forward to the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners anytime soon. So I just hope that I've made that abundantly clear.
Certainly. I just think there might be opportunities for gains in efficiency if we're focusing on the space that we can operate in and really get some good work done. And we're not spending too much time and effort in areas that, are going to get dropped later in the process. Everybody's time is precious, and I'd like to see it focused and used in the best way possible.
Thank you, Chad. Okay. Because I have a desire for us to accomplish all of the things on our agenda for today anyway, I want to ask, one of the items was just establishing a date and time for future meetings. We have had this third Thursday meeting sort of penciled in the past. Is third Thursday still acceptable for staff, Gail?
We will meet whenever you are most comfortable meeting and how often.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objection within the group to retaining that timeline to meet once a month on the third Thursday, presumably an afternoon meeting? I've got one thumbs up, a couple shrugs, no objections anyway. Okay, so Gail, if staff, it sounds like staff is amenable, so let's plan for retaining the third Thursday of the month. I think probably staff can set time as appropriate. It may be that there are times when when it's appropriate for us to start our meeting a little earlier in the afternoon if we've got a particularly long agenda. But I trust you to get a feel for that.
Okay, if I can send out a poll regarding times, it may be beneficial to start earlier. I agree, because I think you're going to have a lot to cover in the next several months.
Okay, that sounds fair to me. Is there any other comment from the group before I move us on to public comment for the day?
Yes. I don't know where this fits in. I think it was a BLCD supported workshop. It had to do with the history of the area. The Historical Society fellow came and noted his excitement about the tombstone of the great bear hunter. It brought to mind that we not only have objects and places and so on, but we also have attitudes that are important to massage. And it's easier to deal with things instead of thoughts. But I think we can see from the uprest around the country that attitudes also are important. And I would love for us to, to leave open in our creative processes, thinking about resolving, discussing attitudes as well as things.
Thank you, Robert. I think that is a good thing for us to keep in mind and bring into discussion. Cheryl, I saw a hand up from you as well.
I remembered what the other thing was I wanted to say before. I appreciate Gail and the staff's situation that they don't want us to just say we want more people to be wearing yellow, but instead that they want us to give them specifics and write a policy. I just want to remind all of us that we, and especially speaking for me, writing policy is not what I'm trained to do, nor what I have experience in doing. So number one, we don't necessarily know correct procedures or vocabulary. And I just want to say to us that don't let that discourage us, okay? We are, especially those of us who are representing the CACs, our local folks, we're bringing back ideas, and we're not going to have them in correct policy form or any policy form. We're going to be bringing back, I want more yellow. Number one, we're not trained to do that. And number two, we're not paid. So we are all volunteers, and we have made a 2-3 year commitment to come to these meetings. And for those of us, who are working with the locals, we're doing 2 meetings a month. So we're doing our local group and this one. So I just wanted to say, go ahead and be bold for all of us, bring our requests. And I know it makes it 10 times easier for Gail for us to be more clear with her where we're going and how we're going to get there. But we'll just bumble along as best we can.
Thank you, Cheryl. Gail, can I ask you a question related to that? I think that with the interest of efficiency and effective discussion, that people bringing precise language to our meetings is ideal. Is it possible for people who have concepts to use staff time, to send you an email and say, I'd like to have more people wear yellow in the county, but I don't know great language for that. Can you suggest some language around that? Is that a good use of staff time in advance of meetings?
Yeah, the staff is always available to provide help, answer questions, not just to the Citizen Advisory Committee members, but also to anybody from the public. And perhaps I was a little too adamant. I don't expect you to have it absolutely final draft perfect, but something more than just, well, we think there's a problem with something in the county and we don't even, a lot of times we don't even get to the point of discussion where we talk about how to fix it. It's just this is wrong and this is why it's wrong. But to get to that point where there's some concept about how you think it can be fixed, that's really what I'm looking for. Not that you have the final legal ready writing. So I apologize for miscommunicating that.
I mean, I'll just jump back in and say, I think it's valuable for us up front to get as precise a language as we can into the document and discuss that particular language, so that when we get to the end of the process and we're trying to have the revote on each point that we've done, that we've already had some robust discussion about, hopefully, a near final product that we've given you in the beginning. So I think it's in our interest to give you as close to a final product as we can. But thank you for allowing for staff time to do that if that comes up. I think we would appreciate the expertise. Any other comments from the commission before we go to, or from the committee before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment today? We allow for comment from the public. We would ask that you limit yourself to 3 minutes if you have comments at this time. And seeing or hearing none, that is the extent of our agenda. Any closing comments from either staff or committee members at this time? Gail, you will send us out some polls for starting time for the next meeting. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
And I would have everyone plan for the third Thursday next month, whatever time we end up choosing, but plan for that day. It was a pleasure seeing you all again. Given that we've worked through our agenda, we can be adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job.